All right, so in today's lesson, we are going to be talking about preparing functional requirement document and functional specification document. Oftentimes, a lot of people interchange this document, um, the meaning of this document or the usage of this document, they interchangeably use the word. Sometimes they say FRD and sometimes they say FSD. And a lot of people don't really understood or understand the usage where these documents needs to be used. Okay, so for functional requirement document, FRD is a document detailing the system or application or software requirement for the client or for a user and managers to understand and agree on the goals and the expectation of the system or application or software to be built or purchased. Most of the time, in places where I've seen that FRD, functional requirement document, are being used is mostly when an organization is trying to procure a software or an application from a vendor. Now, the organization might have their own internal built applications or an application that was built by another company that they've been using for their day-to-day activities or day-to-day businesses. And now they are looking to move to another application that can better suit and meet the growing demand of the organization. And at that point, what they want to do when they are shopping around, um, they are shopping around for applications from several vendors. What they do is they try to capture the functionality of their system, their current system. They try to capture that. Once they capture the current functionality of the current system in terms of the business practices, the database that is being used, the processes inside it, and then they use those informations that they have gathered, then they can use it to build a functional requirement document to say, okay, this new application that we are trying to procure or this new application that this vendor is trying to build, this is the expectation. This is the goal of that application. This is the requirement that we are looking for from this application. Or if it's an application or a software that needs to be built out, the functional requirement document is used to document the expectation, the goal of this application. What is required from this application? And majority of time, the people that create these functional requirement documents is the business analyst. The business analyst is the one that is going to create the functional requirement document. And how do you create that? You create a functional requirement document from your BROD, because before you can create a functional requirement document, you must have interviewed, brainstormed with the stakeholders, with a different business unit to understand the system functionality or the current system functionality, or to understand the functionality that is needed from individual business unit for the new application that is about to either be purchased or be built. And that way you put it, use it to build your functional requirement document. Okay, so in today's class, we are going to take our requirements that we've been working on, our project requirement that we've been working on, and we're going to try and use it to build an FRD from a smaller scale. You understand me? Because an FRD document could be a very big document. Most of the time, these documents are very big when it comes to FRD because it's a functional requirement document for a system or an application. Okay, so we're going to try and build one of these documents from our requirement so that we can get going with it. On the other hand, a functional specification document, which is FSD, is a document detailing the system, application, or software requirement for the developers. Mind the word there, for the developers. In FRD, it's a for the client, users, or manager, or an organization. But the specification is for the developers to understand the goals and the expectation of work to be done on the system. That is another word there. The work to be done on the application, system, or software. In FSD, this document is also useful for the consultants and contractors for the maintenance of the system, application, or software to understand work that were already done in the system. So what is the difference between FRD? Another difference between FRD and FSD is this. FSD is mostly used when the system is already in existence. When the application has already been built, if enhancement or integrations or a workflow or a report or a form needs to be added to that application, FSD comes in because the word there S says specification, to specify the work that needs to be done, the change that needs to be done, the code that needs to be enhanced, the functionality that needs to be enhanced or integrated. So there is an already existing system. And most time, another key point I want to share here is this. Point number 3. In FSD, when you're writing a functional specification document, it is mostly meant for functional or technical business analysts. And FSD is mostly written by a functional or technical business analyst. A functional or technical business analysts are the ones that have an hands-on experience on that application itself. Take, for example, if you are an SAP business analyst, SAP is an application there. When you are dealing with developers, you are going to be writing a functional specification and you are going to be using the SAP environment to create your specification because you are writing that document to the developers that already knows how SAP works. And you too, as the business analyst, you have an idea, you have an hands-on experience about the application. But FRD, on the other hand, you don't have to have experience in that application, but you are only documenting the requirement that is needed in that application. So that is one of the key difference between an FRD and a functional specification document. Another example I'm going to give you with functional specification document is, take for example, if you have experience in Salesforce, CRM, it means that if you are required to write any functional document, likely you will be able to write a functional specification document because you do have experience on Salesforce. You know how the Salesforce application works. So you can write the functional document specifying the exact functionality that is needed in that system. You can even go as far as telling the developers, directing them even on their code base if you have experience on how the code are written in that application. Okay, so let's take those keywords there. Well, the takeaway here is that FRD is the document that is used to show the system requirement for either a client, an organization, a user, or a manager on the goals of that application for them to agree on and the expectation of that application, the expectation they want from that application. But FSD in this case is for the developers in that environment to understand the goals and the expectation of the work to be done on that application himself or that software. So that is the takeaway between FRD and FSD. So when you get to the workforce, if they tell you you need to write an FRD or a functional requirement document, so you should have it at the back of your mind that the functional requirement document is just to talk about the functionality, the expectation, and the goal of that software or application they are looking to either build or they are looking to either purchase. Okay. Why, if they ask you to write a functional specification document, the expectation from you is that you have an understanding of that application already. And now they need you to write a functional document for the developers that are already working in that application, that understand the code behind the scene of that application on what to do in that application. Okay, so the challenging part of an FSD is if you don't have experience on that application, it becomes challenging for you to be able to write your functional specification. So at that point, you can either go back to start writing FRD, and it could become challenging with communication with the developers because they will understand what you're trying to do, but now they might start coming back to ask you some questions. But because you do not have experience on the application itself, it becomes challenging for you to be able to answer their questions. Okay. All right. So what are some of the core components of FRD and FSD to consider when you are writing them? Now, I will backtrack to remind us that every organization out there, 80% of them will already have a template. If they want you to write an FRD, they will have an existing template that you can use to write it. And if they do not, there are a lot of templates out there that you can use to tailor to meet your requirement, you know. And also the same thing goes for the functional specification document. The organization, 80% of them will already have a template for their own functional specification that you can definitely use. So it's okay to ask your manager, to ask the business and say, hey, do you have the functional requirement document template? Do you have a functional specification template that you can send my way from the organization? Okay. And they will send to you, because most of this document, they will either have the organization logos and security, or what they call the footnote confidentiality on them. Okay, so that's it.